He said, have they put 2 and 2 together yet? I said, you mean as in the end of the Roman Republic and the Roman Empire? He said, certainly. I said, I'm not sure. There's some unnerving similarities between America at the beginning of the 21st century and Rome at the beginning of the last century before Jesus Christ. We're not nearly as bad a shape as they were, but we do have some of the same problems. The inability to make obvious decisions, the inability of our government to sometimes do what is best for us, okay, because of politics, personal vendettas, etc. It doesn't make any difference whether you're a Fox fan or whether you're an MSNBC fan or some other place. When you hear the rhetoric on those, it is not the rhetoric of compromise. It's the rhetoric of it's my way or the highway. And that's not how governments function. Okay? Nobody ever in history gets it 100% the way they want. Okay? And government's just an impossibility. They may for a short amount of time, but they always get in the end smacked. Okay? And the Roman Republic, in the last years of its existence, got to a point where it could no longer make decisions that any obvious, rational person would have made. Politics got in the way. Okay? We have those 2 parallel governments, consul, senate, representing the patricians, and the equestrians tend to decide with the patricians. Tribune, assembly, plebeians, in between, okay, both had the power of veto. Tribune had the power of veto, consul had the power of veto. And remember, you could have more than one person at the top. You could have power sharing under their system. You could have 3 people forming what was known as a triumvirate, where you had 3 people that were serving like this consul. Okay? We talked about, did we not, the Gracchi brothers in the 130s, okay, BC. Gracchus and Tiberius, Gaius rather, and Tiberius Gracchi, who tried as senators to come through with some sort of peaceful, intelligent reform, and for their efforts they got murdered. Okay, those were dead before the decade was over, and from that point onwards, it's mostly violence. A series of civil wars racked the Roman Republic, where different factions tried to take over the government. Finally, about 50 years before Jesus Christ, a fellow by the name of Julius Caesar becomes dictator of Rome. He's dictator for about 15 years, dying in 44 BC. And he was a dictator, there's no doubt about it, okay? But he was a very competent dictator. And he provided pretty efficient government, he provided some reforms, he had great success on the battlefield. He's the one who adds Gaul and Egypt. Eventually, his grandnephew will finish it up. But he finally starts the process to pull these in and complete the Orbis Terrarum, the circle of lands around the Mediterranean. He does all these things. And he's the man who said, what's the line everybody knows? I came, I saw, I conquered. Okay? When he came back from conquering Gaul, which was a terrible battle, the pre-French, the French aren't here yet, people that were there, put up a horrific fight. He finally crushed them brutally, and when he came before the Senate, he said, I came, I saw, I conquered. In Latin, vidi, vidi, vinci. Okay? I came, I saw, I conquered. Probably to some people sounds equally retarded. Okay.
Hey, don't say that word, Mr. Jackson.
What?
Trevor gets upset when you say retarded.
Where's Trevor?
He's right there.
Trevor, are you upset?
There you are.
Don't let him lie to you.
Then let's say that if we don't like that word, what it sounds, no, it sounds weird. How's that? Okay. I came, I saw, I conquered, and with the power that he had from that, he is quite successful. But of course, he has enemies. There's people that didn't want him to be consul of the Roman Republic, dislike the power that he has, are envious of his position, and they stage a coup. They murder him on the Ides of March in the year 44 BC, Christian calendar. on the top of the steps of the Senate building in Rome. Okay? Sets off another huge civil war which lasts about 15 years. And when the war finally comes to an end in 30 BC, his grandnephew, Octavian Caesar, is the victor. He returns to Rome from Egypt, where he wins his last battles. He returns to Rome, and before the Senate, he is given the title of Princeps, first citizen of the state, and Augustus, which of course means sacred, glorious, would probably be two rough translations into English. I didn't mention yesterday, because of reasons of time, what two other honors are bestowed upon Julius Caesar and Octavian Caesar. Yes?
Was it Devious Caesar?
That's an expression that just is going to be used to describe Caesar. Divus Caesar, Semper Augustus, divine Caesar, always glorious. But, Mr. Mitchell, I really do need your attention. What are the two other things that are given to Julius and Octavian? No, really? Nobody knows? Well,
Give us a hint.
well, there's 12 of them.
Days of Christmas.
No. Pretty hard. Christ isn't born yet. Are you real? I'm really amazed.
Oh, they both get a month.
Yes, excellent, Wes. Thank you.
August.
Okay.
July.
The Roman calendar had 10 months. Might want to. I'll definitely put this on. I assume this was common knowledge.
What's the other one?
Julius.
Like July and then Augustus.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
The Roman calendar had 10 months. And the Senate, in honor of the glories before they got rid of him, the glories of Julius Caesar, decided to create a new and 11th month and name it July in English in honor of Julius Caesar. When Octavian came along, and once again was equally successful, they said, let us create the month of August from Augustus. Okay, again, August is in English, in honor of him. After that, the Senate decided this is getting out of hand. We're going to run out of days. We keep taking the number of days and spreading them into more and more months, and they never did it again. But they added the month of July and August. Now, if you're sitting there, okay, Octavian, okay, Augustus Caesar, his title once he becomes the leader of Rome, after it produces the month of August, Julius Caesar got the month of July. Now, my question for you is this, or my point is this. In case you're sitting there thinking, oh my God, this is another one of Mr. Jackson's crackpot ideas, I ask you this. What follows the month of August? September. 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 No. 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 Some of you are being silly. What does the word September mean in Latin? It's where the word seven comes. It's where the word sieben in German comes. Seven. September means septius, the number 7. Okay? And if we didn't have July and August, June, September is what it used to be. Okay? You went from June to September. The 6th month, June. The 7th month, September. If you look at the next month, bless you, October, oct is 8. Okay? So the month of September and October, the meaning of the months now makes no sense because we have July and August stuck in there, named after the two Caesars. Okay? Everybody clear on that? Now, with Octavian Caesar being given the title of Princeps and Augustus, you want to write down, we begin what we call the Roman Empire. Now, my first major thing you should have after you put today's date down in your notes. First major thing you should have down is they never got rid of any of the trappings of the Republic. Say that again. This is not like the American Revolution where we kick out the British and sweep away all the evidence that the British forever ruled us. Everything from the Republic is still there. Okay? All public documents and pronouncements begin with Senatus Populesque Romanus, the Senate and the people of Rome. Okay? All that is the same. You want to write down, we still have a consul. Okay? It might be somebody appointed by the quote-unquote emperor. It might be the emperor himself. He might walk in this door and I would say, ladies and gentlemen, Princeps, Augustus, consul, and tribune of the Roman state. Okay? So you want to write down all those titles and institutions just stay. What is now above this is really a dictator. Okay? A dictator, a Führer, to lead the Roman state. Okay? And this new leader rules pretty much as an absolute ruler. It is not a monarchy. That's why I use the word emperor all the time, and I don't really like it, because when you think of emperor, you think of a monarchy. Being the son of an emperor, being the son of a Caesar, might make it a little easier to become the next Caesar, but it didn't guarantee it. You must write down in your notes, this is not father to son. It helped to be of the quote-unquote imperial family, but it doesn't guarantee it. Roman power, if you were at the top, depended on your control of the Senate, your control of the government, and your control of the army. Okay? Yeah.
This is a dumb question, but women couldn't serve in the Senate, could they?
Start again. I couldn't hear you. Somebody was being rude.
Women couldn't serve in the Senate, could they?
Who couldn't serve?
Women?
Oh, no. In Roman society, I hate to say this, in Roman society, the position of women probably was less than in Greek society. Okay, the Romans, remember we go back to paterfamilias, the Romans society was a very male chauvinist society. Okay? Yes?
So did Octavian change his name to Augustus?
Yeah, well, if you want to do his full name, you would say Octavian Caesar, Princeps and Augustus of Rome, but over time we just got to the point we refer to him as Augustus Caesar. If you remember in the Christmas story,
People get called Augustus?
pardon me?
So like do new emperors or whatever?
Yes,
they get
that
called-
title Augustus went with other emperors as well.
And what did like the Devious Caesar Semper Augustus mean?
That is the description that defines the position of the emperor. Divine Caesar, he is a god, ever glorious, okay, ever the supreme leader of the Roman state. Divus Caesar Semper Augustus. And I think we were right to that point yesterday with bell rang, Semperfi. If you see a young guy driving around, Semperfi is abbreviation for Semper Fidelis, which means always loyal, faithful. Okay? Semper simply means always in Latin. Okay? And I should also point out to you, these names that I have up here on the board are our English short names. Okay? The Roman emperors all had much longer names. This was Flavius, Petrus, Sabatius, Constantinus. Okay? We just call him Constantine. So they had longer names. But we used in English just short form. A few of the emperors we used the real name, like Marcus Aurelius, who isn't on our list. He had more names than that. We use his actual name, Marcus Aurelius, but most of them we anglicize them, make them into English names. Yes? We're going to do all of those people today. Yeah. Anybody have any questions about this position of emperor? Okay. And the last thing you want to write down, if you don't already have it in your notes, there are 75 of them. 75 emperors, give or take, because some of these emperors shared power. There's one instance, for example, we had 3 emperors simultaneously. So how do you count them? Well, you sort of just kind of count. Most history books will say there's 70, 71, 73, 76 emperors. Okay, and once again we get back to the whole concept of time. From the Republic is 700 to 800 years old when Augustus Caesar becomes emperor in 27 BC. When the empire ends, they've had 70 emperors, each one of whom, most of whom rule longer than an American president by far. 70 of them, we're talking about 500 years here. Okay, I love this country. I'm a patriotic American, but we're right now a bump in the road. Now these people that start pounding their chest saying what a great, powerful, wonderful nation we are, in 500 years we can say that. Okay? In the world view, our country is a very short-lived phenomenon. 230 years in world history is not very much. Okay? Here's a nation that lasted 12 to 1400 years. So in about 1,000 years, we can puff out our chest and say, ain't we great? So that's one thing that history teaches you, is hopefully the big picture. Okay, all countries tend to be ethnocentric. We all tend to think we're the top dogs, best people, etc. Okay, you've all heard I'm sure my French story. When I was down some years ago at Epcot in Florida with a group of friends, and they were shopping, and I wasn't big into what they were shopping for, so I was just kind of wandering around the little store in the French Pavilion. He got talking to the clerk, a gentleman about my age. We talked a few pleasantries, and I asked him how he was doing. He said, well, he liked his job. He was here for 5 years. He had competed to get the job. The French government pays his salary to come and work in the United States at Epcot. And I said, well, I'm sure you're really enjoying being in the United States. Thinking he was going to say, oh yeah, a great country, love to be here. I'm really privileged to be here. And he said, I felt kind of insulted. He said, well, it's a nice place to visit, but I sure as hell wouldn't want to live here. I thought, well, pardon me, monsieur. Okay. But he said, the food is terrible in this country, and he said the pace of life is awful, and he said you people are so rude to each other, and he had a whole list of things he didn't like about Americans. Okay.
Frenchmen insult us.
Yes. Okay. So I bid him adieu and left. Okay. But we all people. Okay. I have a friend who is a Dane. Okay. Little tiny dinko Denmark. And to hear him talk, you would think it was the center of the universe. Okay, oh, we have Copenhagen, great country, great city, wonderful civilization. We're so much more advanced than other people. We have such a liberal and open society, blah, 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 blah. And I think, you have little Denmark, okay? We have states 5 times bigger than you are. But, you know, when you study history, you kind of get the big picture. And the big picture on this is the thing you want to have down. We're talking about long, big, lasting. That's why the Roman Empire is still the benchmark by which we measure nations. Few countries in the world have ever had as long a run of success as they had, even though they're eventually going to fall. Yes?
Is Caesar and emperor the same thing?
It's the only word we have in the English language that comes close, but the word Caesar does not mean emperor, it's just the last name. It's the name of a family. As I said, it'd be like if we put in front of every president the word Washington. Okay, Washington Obama is our current
So they're
president.
called emperors?
The word emperor doesn't exist. It won't exist for another 1,000 years. It's a French word. Okay? The Romans had no word emperor. They just used the last name Caesar to describe the person who held power. Okay? Anything else? Well, before we start this, let's stretch for a moment. So stand up, and then we'll come back and start on this. And why don't, is anybody warm in here besides me? Is this room hot? I think it's terrible. I'm not going to leave these open very long.
fine. I'm sure I'll understand it. I'm just the postscript. I remember.
American presidency from 4 people. But, you know, time is time, and we can only do so much, and we can only be expected to learn so much at one time. So I have boiled down 76 emperors into 6. They are arranged chronologically in order. I will read these off, spell them for you in case you can't read Jackson. These are, like Mr. Bolts, are in the next county back there and probably can't see. They are as follows. Number 1, the emperor that we simply call Augustus. Okay? Octavian, Caesar, Augustus. Okay? As you read in the Bible, in the days of Caesar Augustus. Okay? Augustus will do nicely on the test. Okay? August with a U.S. on the end of it. He became emperor in 27 B.C. He had the power in 30 B.C., but it took him about 3 years to actually create the office of this new office, quote-unquote, emperor's office. So some historians will say 27, some will say clear back to 30 B.C. And he rules at the time of Jesus Christ's birth. He's the emperor, and he rules till 14 A.D. He starts a dynasty of family members, not father to son, but family members for about 100 years, members of what is called the Claudian line, are emperor. Okay, but it's not a real dynasty like the Windsors in England, where it goes from father to son, down the line. Augustus. The second emperor, notice, is, I'm skipping 70, 80 years, I guess, okay, where there are emperors, we're just skipping over them, to Trajan, Trajan. Again, he had a long name. We just shrink it down to one word. We call him in English Trajan. Trajan ruled from 98 to 117 AD. These are all ADs from now on. Everything is AD. We're out of the BCs. We'll never be in the BCs again except when we do China and India and those places. Okay? 98 to 117. The third emperor is Hadrian, Hadrian, Hadrian. Hadrian. Hadrian's dates are 117 to 138. So these two emperors actually touch. Okay? They're one right after the other. And I would put a star or something there because there's a big change that takes place. Even though these two emperors are right next to each other, between their reigns, there's a huge change in the way the Romans view the world. Okay? The fourth is an emperor who was famous for his badness. Okay? He was not a good emperor. And we'll talk more about why. A fellow by the name of Diocletian. 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 Diocletian, Diocletin. Diocletian, notice I'm jumping a long amount of time. I'm jumping as far as we are from Abe Lincoln practically. He becomes emperor in 284, and he dies in 305. 284 to 305. 284 to 305. Number 5 is the big man himself, the last great emperor. Okay? Constantine. Okay? Petrus, Sabatius, Constantinus, Constantine, Constantine, guy after whom Constantinople is named it after himself with all due modesty. And notice he is there's an emperor between Diocletian and he, 312 to 337. 312 to 337. 312 to 337. And last of all is the 76th and last emperor, Romulus Augustulus. Romulus, spelled like Romulus we've already had. Augustulus, it's simply the word August with a U-L-U-S after it. U-L-U-S. 475 to 476. 475 to 476. And the name 476, if I were taking your notes, I would put out to the side in big letters, put a box around it, draw lots of arrows, exclamation marks. 476 will be on the next several tests. That's one of those big dates in history. The date that the Roman Empire in the West fell, the Roman Empire at Rome. All right? Everybody comfortable with that? I'm not going to say anything about this guy other than what I'm now going to say. His only claim to fame is he was last. He was your age when he became emperor. He was about 18 years of age. He ruled 1 year. It was a year of one unmitigated disaster after another, and he is overthrown by the barbarians, and after him there are no more emperors in Rome. Why, one of the huge ironies of history, okay? Please notice that he carries the name of the founder of the Roman Republic, at least according to mythology, Romulus and Remus. And he carries the name of, a variation of the name of the first emperor of the empire. Okay? So he who had the name of the founder of the state, the name of the first emperor, turns out to be the last emperor of Rome. Okay? Now, let's talk about those other five. Let's see if we can get one or two done. Augustus, whatever you may think of him, and none of these men had perfectly clean track records. You didn't get to the top of the Roman political heap. It was like becoming the godfather of the mafia. You didn't get there by being a Boy Scout. You poisoned, you killed, you fought, you betrayed. You had to fight your way to the top, and it helped to have inside connections. Most of these men were either the sons of generals or generals themselves, and it helped to be of what the Romans called the purple. Purple was a color reserved only for the imperial family. They were the only people that could wear the color purple. And so if you were of the purple, it meant that you were one of the imperial family, quote unquote. Augustus was an excellent administrator. One of the great administrators in all of world history. He was not a perfect man, but when it came to running a country, he did a good job. And if the benchmark of greatness is that you leave your country better than you found it, okay, which I think most of us would probably use if I asked you to rate the presidents, did the president leave the country in better shape than he found it? And I think the benchmark we as Americans use. If you use that benchmark, he was an excellent ruler. Okay, he took a country that had been through 150 years of on and off civil war, 150 years of gridlock, 150 years of all sorts of political problems, and for 40 years he administered the country smoothly and flawlessly. Okay, he undertook all sorts of programs to improve the economy, to improve the living conditions of the typical Roman, and to make the government work well. And although the Roman Empire is eventually going to die, most of the institutions he put in place worked pretty darn well for a long time. And again, get back to right now our Constitution is a wonderful document of which I am extremely proud. It's the oldest continuous Constitution in the world, and it works pretty darn great. Now, in 300 or 400 more years, if it's still working that well, then we can say, my God, they wrote a fabulous document. Okay? Well, most of the institutions he put in place worked pretty well for 200 to 300 years at least. He undertook also huge construction projects, roads, aqueducts, if that's a water system. If you don't know what they are, we'll talk about that when we get to Roman civilization. And the city of Rome itself. And by this time, Rome is getting to be a city at least as big as Columbus, Ohio. Okay? We're talking about a huge city with multi-story apartment buildings, stadiums like Ohio Stadium, theaters, palace complexes that make the White House look like a lean-to. Okay? All this is in the city of Rome. Well, he took that city and made it even more beautiful. The line that he has often said, to have said, we don't know, but if he didn't, it's true. He said, I found Rome brick and left it marble. Okay? I found Rome brick and left it marble. Okay? Great man, Augustus. And if you want to know what he looks like, we actually know he is right here. Okay? This guy down here at the bottom. So if you're up here, check him out. Above him is Julius Caesar, his granddaughter. Trajan was a general, fought his way to the top, became emperor, and the only thing you really need to remember about him, his greatest single accomplishment, was he expanded the Roman Empire to its greatest extent. Now, I gave you a handout that is a map, okay? If you would dig that map out right now, oh, bless your heart, dear, thank you for your organization. It looks like this. It looks like this. It looks like this. We can handle that. That's why Mr. Jackson always prints off extras. Somewhere in here, hopefully now that I'm bragging, I probably don't have one. Here.
Hold on, let me write it before I forget it. Okay.
Need one. Pass one back.
He expanded the Roman Empire to its greatest extent.
Now,
He expanded the Roman Empire. Like, it's great.
I'm going to write on this map, this is the Roman Empire at its greatest extent. It's the area in dark gray. Roughly the size of the United States, which is a huge area when you think this was administered with a horse, and that was about it. And if you look at that, you will notice that of the phrase I would write on there, you don't need to know the Latin, but you should recognize the phrase when you hear it, orbis terrarum. It is a circle of lands around the Mediterranean. Yeah. This is the Roman Empire at its greatest extent. It is a circle of lands, an orbis terrarum around the Mediterranean Sea. The Romans, with their typical arrogance, and they were arrogant people, referred to it, and we'll find out tomorrow. See you then. Have a good day. If you need help, come and see me. Remember, those of you doing the DAR stuff, I need it. And if you're redoing your personal profile project, tomorrow morning, please, start a class.
What'd you think of class today? Hey man, what'd you think of class?
I want to talk.